Hey, what's up everybody? Frank Valkyria. Welcome to the channel. Yes, today we're doing a reaction a little bit different. This is a suggestion which I received many times in the past months. Never got around to do it. So today, let's do it. We're gonna check Ayrton Senna 10 best moments apparently to this page here. Obviously, I'm no stranger to Ayrton Senna. What a great driver, what a great figure. Truly is actually one of my favorite sportsman figure, actually one of my favorite humans. I said it, yes. I don't know why, I don't know, it's like a little bit like Freddie Mercury or Albert Einstein, you know, like those incredible figures of our history, which they don't happen very often, you know. So you somehow look up to them. You're just charmed, and you're in awe of what they achieved, of what they do, and how they do it. So let's go together. Top 10 moments of Ayrton Senna Brilliance.
Ayrton Senna's defensive driving skills were second to none.
You know what? This title is already wrong because there is not a top 10. It's a bigger top 10.
And he demonstrated his incredible technique at the 1993 British Grand Prix. A great start saw him leap into second place at turn 1, just ahead of his great rival Alain Prost in the Williams. But even with the professor in his slipstream, Senna displayed his mastery of both the Silverstone circuit and the art of driving to hold him off for a full 6 laps in his slower McLaren. During qualifying for the 1990 Spanish Grand Prix, a blistering lap at the...
I think the shot before, the camel behind, the Benetton probably was Schumacher.
Jerez circuit saw Senna put in a time of 1 minute 18.387 seconds. That flying lap, a track record, earned Senna his 50th career pole position, with the Brazilian going a full 1.2 seconds faster than his McLaren teammate Gerhard Berger.
Wow. I mean, at a certain point in the 90s, of course, I think, I don't remember exactly when, they started to use pedal shifter, but not I don't know if it was just before, unfortunately, he passed away, like 93, 94, towards the end of his career, unfortunately. Formula One was also getting a lot of
the first Grand
new
Prix
tech.
held at Jerez saw one of the closest finishes in
There was
F1
a
history.
huge gap in between
Senna led
brands.
in his Lotus, but on the final lap, his now very worn tyres were failing, and a freshly shod Nigel Mansell was bearing down on him.
Wow.
Senna defended superbly, but as they hit the final straight, the Briton darted alongside, and the two future champions sped for the line. Senna held on and took the flag first by just 14 thousandths of a second.
Young kid, look at that.
During practice at the 1992 Belgian Grand Prix, Eric Comas crashed his Ligier at the high-speed Blanchimont corner at 180 miles an hour. The Frenchman was unconscious with his engine still running and his foot pressing on the accelerator, pumping fuel into the system. Senna stopped his McLaren and dashed over to his stricken colleague.
Wow.
And
Wow, he endangered also himself.
Switched the engine off. Comas would later state that Senna had undoubtedly saved his life.
Wow, he endangered himself just to probably spontaneously wanting to save a person, obviously, you know, and he put off the engine of the other car to avoid an explosion. I mean, wow, you know, just extraordinary in their way. He didn't have to do it because that's not his job. There is people around which they're supposed to be prepared for those circumstances. Yet he did that, and it shows also like his very human side, of course. Really an amazing guy, truly extraordinary.
A disastrous start at the 1988 Japanese Grand Prix saw pole sitter Senna left stationary on the grid as the lights went out, dropping him all the way to 16th place. With his chances of winning a maiden world championship dwindling, he went on one of the greatest charges in F1 history. Within 20 laps, he was in second place, chasing down championship rival and teammate Alain Prost.
Wow.
And shortly after, caught and passed him for the lead, before going on to take the win and secure the 1988 Drivers' Championship. It was a truly remarkable performance.
Wow, you know, I was a kid, of course. I was pretty young. Not a kid, I was pretty young in 89. Let's say 89. So obviously, I don't remember all those details, you know. My fascination with Senna just grew through the years and through the 90s. And also after his passing, unfortunately. So obviously those early details I don't know. Every now and then I check those, you know, I'm like many guys, I'm a car guy in a way. Like I don't watch sports, but I used to love Formula One, especially more back in the days. Now I don't watch very much sports, but I always liked cars and racing since I can remember. So for me, those guys, they're like the pinnacle, you know, the transition between also on still having a clutch and a manual shifter with cars which sometime in the 80s, you know, those smaller engine with huge turbos, you know, those 1.4, 1.6 liter engine with 800 horsepower or like 1000 plus in configuration of how do you call it, to do the pole position.
It feels great, of course.
Amazing, they drove those things.
And it's a great feeling.
A wet Donington bore witness to one of Senna's greatest ever single laps. Fourth on the grid for the 1993 European Grand Prix, a difficult start saw him drop a place to a young Michael Schumacher. But the Brazilian maestro then displayed all of his wet weather mastery, passing Schumacher and Carl Wendlinger through the Craner curves. And by turn 7, he'd overtaken Damon Hill. Then, with 2 corners to go, he slithered inside Prost and muscled his way through into a lead he would not relinquish. Senna's reputation as a wet weather genius was
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anybody still today since that knows how to drive on wet like Senna did. I don't even understand how it was possible, honestly. It's just so incredibly remarkable. It's unfortunate that, you know, the McLaren Honda was going good, and then, if I remember correctly, Williams started to get in with some new technology, and at the time, I think in the early 90s or whatever, there weren't the same regulations, so there was a lot more disparity in between cars. And I think Williams just nailed like this 4-wheel steering system and suspension, whatever, that was just giving the cars an absolutely extra edge. Almost anybody driving those freaking cars would be in front of everybody. And Senna, unfortunately, was in those times was forced to compete against this superior car in a lesser car. So unfortunate, man. I mean, he moved, unfortunately, also in the Williams when this disparity started to decrease. You know, the Williams wasn't so strong anymore. God damn it.
Starting in 13th, and in near torrential rain, Senna masterfully manoeuvred his Toleman up to second place, passing legends such as Niki Lauda along the way. He chased down and passed race leader Alain Prost on lap 32, but Prost complained that the conditions were too dangerous, and clerk of the course Jackie Ickx agreed, red flagging and stopping the race. As the results were then counted from the last completed lap, Prost was awarded victory, cruelly denying both Senna and Toleman an historic maiden win. Senna's win would come, though, and it was again the weather that allowed him to prove his authority.
Oh man, those older cars, look at this, like those gigantic tires. I mean, obviously, nowadays there is so much more safety. I mean, those freaking things, look at how it's open and also how it's standing much more, almost shoulders out. Those freaking cars, just brutal power, acceleration, just absolutely insane. What those guys, all of them, were capable to do, and Senna even more, just being able to handle those incredible brutal machines.
At a rain-soaked Estoril in 1985, having secured his maiden pole position, he pushed his Lotus to the limit. As drivers behind him aquaplaned and spun off in droves, Senna sailed around the sodden circuit, leading from start to finish.
He
And
just
beating second-placed Michele
rode
Alboreto
the car,
by over
everything.
a minute to secure the first of what would become 41 career victories. In his 8th season as a Formula One driver, the now 31-year-old...
Oh, that's in Brazil. Of course! In your own country, you're gonna kick ass. And he kicked ass. Oh man, sometimes I don't understand life. Such little things. That day, I think in '94, oh man, that was, if I remember correctly, the day before also a brutal accident that costed the life of another driver happened. I forgot the name, unfortunately, rest in peace. Was such a mess. Was such a mess. And it's always said that after the organization, you know, the Formula One organization, they take measures, you know. Now the long stretch, Imola doesn't exist anymore. It was cut with the chicane, if I remember correctly. And still so many doubts about this freaking accident and this like steering column that broke. And sometimes, you know, like I think about it, I saw the documentary, it pisses me so much off.
Senna finally won his home race in front of his adoring fans in Sao Paulo. Qualifying on pole, a superb start saw Senna lead for some 65 laps of the Interlagos circuit. But then,
What a master
with the duck
of his
about to be
craft.
broken, his McLaren's gearbox began to fail, losing a succession of gears until only 6th was available. As Williams' Riccardo Patrese and the rain clouds closed in, Senna managed to steer his stricken car home for the win using only one gear. As the Samba celebrations
Using only one gear, he still freaking managed to push that car to the finish line. Oh man, I mean, it goes on and on and on. Those were great drivers, and Ayrton, on top of everybody else, was the greatest. To me, is the greatest. It's really the greatest nowadays, and later on, after the 90s, apart Schumacher, of course, which is another extraordinary driver. Unfortunately, also him, it seems like it's not having a great retirement after the accident, the skiing accident. So tragic, those things. That also a little bit more tragic in the sense that you go skiing and you hurt yourself and you won 6 times, 7 times. I don't even know how many times Schumacher won. Like also racing, which is so incredibly dangerous. You survived and then you hit your freaking head skiing or whatever, and then, you know, probably lost some abilities, unfortunately. And this is sad because, of course, like I said before, this pisses me off that an accident like this, maybe something that could have been avoided, maybe, go figure. But when you perform at this level, when you are at the edge, truly at the cutting edge of technology and performance, Ayrton Senna pushing himself to the limit, always to be in the zone, so to speak, to use the sort of sportsman metaphor. He was incredibly competitive, and he was truly a sportsman. I think he gave everything he had in the performance. So probably was always using a little bit more of the percentage that it's allowed. And when you stretch it that far, then there, you obviously increases the percentage also of casualties.
Again, the victor, physically and emotionally exhausted after his grueling efforts, was barely able to lift the trophy.
Amazing.
Perhaps Senna's single greatest moment was this qualifying lap from 1988. Senna himself remarked that his...
Oh man, that's freaking historical. I mean, nobody, even on the wet, drove Monaco as good as this guy. I mean, sometimes I wish just, like now, of course, times are less on a lap because basically the cars, they almost drive themselves. Don't want to take credit away from those modern drivers because you still need freaking incredible skills to drive those basically missiles, even though you have much more assistance, but still, to manage the tension, the stress that you have on moving, reacting so quickly to everything and everybody around you, which is doing exactly the same. That's pretty remarkable, and I guess that's why you have to be so young. You have to be so incredibly awake. That's one thing that I always thought, if I could have done it, because I always think like, wow, how do you manage that stress? That somebody's pushing behind you and you have to do everything at the best of your abilities, like pushing at the limit. You have to control the limit, so to speak, and at the same time, you have to manage everybody around you. Wow. I mean, you gotta, I don't know, I actually don't even, now at this age, I don't know how you do it. Maybe when you're younger, sort of you develop also a little bit of a distance.
Performance that day transcended his sense of reality, saying he was driving the car by a kind of instinct, only in a different dimension, well beyond his conscious understanding. No onboard footage of the lap exists, but his time of 1 minute 23.998 was almost a second and a half quicker than teammate Prost. Truly, a legend at work.
Wow. More than a second in difference. Oh my God. Oh man. What an incredible driver. I don't think it's going to take some time, even though, today there are great drivers. But honestly, it's been years actually that I don't follow Formula One. For some reason, has lost a lot of appeal to me, especially the more the cars they become complex and basically self-driving. I have this sense of like that, yeah, as you can see, those cars look amazing in a way, but also the regulation and everything with those strange V6s. I don't even know if they're still using those V6s. It's like so less appealing. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. If you want me to react to more Ayrton Senna, please let me know. He's truly one of my favorite, always has been. And it's just so freaking tragic that a lot of the people that we look up to, which they have shown us what greatness looks like, that also give us a sort of an indication for anybody that wants to be the best of themselves in whatever field. Doesn't matter if you're not a driver, if you want to be something else. But as far as the sort of the human experience goes, and you have those sort of pillars of people which they embodied what they did to the best of their abilities, transcending, limitations or whatever. And we have those examples that we can follow whenever we want to improve ourselves, whenever we want to reach the better part of what we can be. So in that way, I will always be grateful to people like Ayrton Senna, because they really give you this sort of lifelong inspiration. You just wish they were still around, unfortunately. So anyway, guys, I'll see you later. Go subscribe. It's free. Ciao. Bye.